We live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, and welcome to the Edge of Everyday. Are you standing at your own edge? Are you craving deeper conversations? Do you know there's more waiting for you just beyond your comfort zone? If you answered yes to any of those questions, the Edge of Everyday is the place for you. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and tough talk about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. You know, the ones between fear and courage, grief and joy, ambition and vulnerability, change and becoming. Here, we explore contradiction. Here, we hold paradox. We confront the truths we've been taught to ignore. Real talk with real people that spark provocative invitations to leap out of what's safe. The Edge is where you come alive. The Edge of Everyday. Thanks for listening. Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Bargman, and welcome back to the Edge of Everyday. Today, we are live in the Hive with former Silicon Valley tech CEO and non-binary trans advocate Michele Bettencourt for a compelling conversation on the evolution of identity. My loyal listeners know that my opening question to all of my guests is, what identity do you lead with? The answers I receive from that question are always fascinating. The construct of identity, whether personal or societal, is a big concept to unpack, especially in today's world. Reflecting on the discrepancy between who one is perceived to be, and who one wants to be, can be a powerful catalyst for change. Here in the US, our government is actively working to strip our personal freedoms. The word freedom, like the word identity, is not a neutral word. It means different things to different people. Is it freedom from? Is it freedom to? Or is it freedom to be? A freedom where the chains of society are cast off and our authentic being can reveal itself. Does our sense of freedom, like our identity, evolve over the course of our lifetime? I'm so looking forward to getting into it with Michele, but first, let me share her bio. Over a 35-year career in the Silicon Valley, Michele Bettencourt served as CEO and director of multiple private and public companies, including Imperva and Coverity. In 2005, she received the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award for the Silicon Valley. She had the honor of pressing the closing buzzer at the NASDAQ, as well as ringing the bell at the closing of the New York Stock Exchange. Michele is the co-CEO and founder of He Said, She Said, a film production company, and the executive producer of the documentary film Beautiful Lie, the story of Michele's transition from Anthony Bettencourt to Michele, a non-binary transgender M2F, male to female. She's the founder of the Michele Bettencourt Foundation, which promotes fair employment for transgender individuals. Michele currently sits on the board of directors of the Sam and Devorah Foundation for Trans Youth. She's married to her wife of 27 years and has 4 grown daughters. Hello, Michele. Welcome to the Edge of Everyday.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Oh, it's an honor to have you. Well, I always like to ask my guests, how is it to hear somebody read your CV in front of you? Isn't it wild? And your CV, I mean, folks, I just touched on it. It goes on and on and on and on. I always love to get people's reaction to that. And I also like to share with my listeners how I know my guests. So in mid-January,
Yeah.
I got a text from our mutual friend, Stephen Hanks. Shout out to you, Stephen, and who said, I can't wait to share someone I'm doing PR work with, and I think she would make a fantastic guest on your podcast. And this is what's happening. He told me about you and your upcoming event at the Cutting Room, which was at the end of January, listeners. It was on the day after we had that epic snowstorm.
You still made it out. It was crazy. It was good. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're in your whole band from Los Angeles, folks. They were we were all waiting to see, and all of us trudging through mounds of snow to get here at the Cutting Room, and it was a recording, a record release party in New York City. Was it the first time that you had performed with Vampire Time about Vampire Time in New York?
But yeah, first time in New York and first time with three of the band members. So we
Love
had
it.
rehearsal the day before.
Wow. Well, it was so hot. And what I really loved, and Stephen really highlighted for me, was the fact that your music, you wrote all of these songs with various other co-writers, yes? They're all politically oriented. Well, most of them are politically oriented. And so I was like, God, we need some political anthems. Why are, now we've got one from Springsteen, of course, but why aren't more people right? And so I was so excited to hear you and your band, and you were perfect in the Cutting Room. And here is, folks, for those of you who are just listening, you're going to have to go to the video. Here's the cover of the vinyl. She did vinyl, folks. She did vinyl.
If you
I
turn
was
it
so
upside
happy.
down, flip it the other way, that's the way, because it's an upside down White House.
Yeah. I just love it with a vampire hanging off the American flag. Perfect. Oh my. Well, it was he also mentioned that he political songs and using our art for resistance is something that that Stephen Hanks does with his Blue Wave shows. Now he invited you to be a part of that that series. Is that correct?
Coming out for that, yes. We're waiting for the date, and we're gonna get ourselves back on a plane and come out for that. Absolutely.
I love it. I so love it. Well, I'll be in the front row cheering, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So now let's get to this question that I ask all of my guests. What identity do you, Michele Bettencourt, lead with?
First human,
Amen.
um, but I identify as my pronouns are she and her.
Mhm.
However, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, I'm a husband, I'm an uncle, and that's me. So I kind of view it's my rules, my life,
I
and
love it.
that does turn a lot of people off. The trans community is a big tent. It's
Mm,
and it's a difficult place for people to be sometimes. If you're 21 years old and the first 20 of your years of your life have been hell,
right.
um, you have a very edgy view of life, and I get that. I don't.
Yes.
I had 57 amazing years, and then some chaos that I caused that was my own,
Mm,
and then a lot of years afterward that have been just fabulous, just better
mm,
and more informative for me. So
yeah. Yeah, I remember I lifted a quote from your film. Where is it? I'll find it. But about, that you're not trans enough, that you said in your film. Yeah, I'm not as trans enough for the trans community, which I had such a great laugh over. And I totally get that. I mean, and you also said in other interviews that I've done such a great deep dive on you. I've just loved learning about your journey, that you're not militant about it. And I appreciated that. For those of us who are learning and trying to be very good allies, I appreciate that perspective.
I always view it, if it took me 57 years to make a change,
Mm,
and wrapped in a lot of confusion still, by the way, because nothing's ever solid, right?
right.
Um, then how can I expect someone to get it in a day a conversation, a year, 5 years. Can't. I give longstanding friends of mine. It's a grandfather clause. I said, look, you could call me AB if you want. If you slip up and refer to me as Anthony, I don't really give a shit. I'm happy to be me, and thanks for being kind. Because you could usually tell when someone's being kind or not being kind. It's pretty obvious.
Truly. Yeah, it's very obvious. Yeah, when people are really trying.
Why punish people for trying?
Hmm.
It just makes no sense to me. So I would go early and I would go sit in bars before I transitioned. And I think cross-dressing is the gateway drug to transitioning, by the way, I think is what happens. And I would, the hotels would all know because I'd be forthright and honest about what I was going to do. And I'd sit and work in the corner. I was a CEO and chair of a public company. I was doing that, by the way, actually for a lot of years. And I'd have some people come up and ask questions. And I thought, I better be an ambassador. Because if I'm not an ambassador, then the next person like me that walks in this room is going to get treated really poorly. And that's not what I want. And I remember I was in Las Vegas at one time, and I had the same back in the day. I'd carry two big Toomey suitcases and a half a case for Anthony, and I'd have
And the
been a
rest,
nice suit and ties and whatnot, and then just gorgeous dresses and hair and everything else in the other two, one and a half. And I went
fabulous
up,
shoes.
checked in, and I shaved, and I came down all made up, and I sat at the bar, and this gentleman sat next to me in khaki pants and a blue collar button-down shirt. I know all the looks. I know the I hate you look, the I'm comfortable with you look, I want to kick your ass look. I know them all because I've seen them all. And he gave me the I'm uncomfortable look. And I smiled and I said, can I buy you a drink? And he said, yeah, beer. And so he took a sip of his beer and he leaned over. He says, are you a prostitute? And I said, sort of. I'm a public company chief executive officer. We talked for an hour. And shared LinkedIn's at the time. So I kept my old LinkedIn profile at that point. And he called about 2.5 years later. My wife and I were just separating because I was figuring myself out, and we were at my daughter's uh, engagement dinner, very trying dinner. Um, and right before I went in, I got a call from this person asking me if he remembered who I was. He was, and I said, "Yeah, of course I do. I remember everybody mostly." And he said, my only child, my only son is transitioning. I didn't know who to call. I sat there and cried.
Of course you
Um,
did.
and it's so this whole idea of being an ambassador and being kind and being honest and vulnerable and not shitty is kind of important to me. And it's not that I'm sure everybody wants to be that, but I'm sure everyone has their own stuff that they've got to deal with, which makes it more difficult for some than others. My
Yeah,
stuff was I always viewed as self-inflicted, so it was kind of easy for me. So
yeah,
that makes it.
of course. Wow, that's incredible. Well, it appears at this point in your life, everything you're doing is about giving back and serving and 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 modeling and sharing kindness and being a source of strength for those who are following in your footsteps. And it's really beautiful. But I want to back up. I want to get, for context for our listeners, I want to, get your beginning stories. Well, right after the concert, the cabaret show at the Cutting Room, which folks, it was fantastic. We rocked, we sang, we all screamed in the audience. You had a great turnout. I mean, who would have known that it
Surprised
snowed
with
epically?
it was so fun, and the after party was great. It was lovely.
The after party was
Yeah,
amazing.
great.
It was, yeah, a real trip. It was fantastic. I had never been in the Chelsea Hotel, BTW.
It's kind of cool. I usually
It's
stay at the Bowery.
totally,
I stay at the Bowery when I record in New York because it's close to the studio we record at. But I wanted to stay at the Chelsea to get the Bob Dylan vibe, and it worked. I did.
totally, just completely. But that night, I started to get this cold. I could feel it coming on. I was like getting a little tingy, which is why I left early, a little tingy in my nose. And I came down with a cold. And I just stayed in my bed for 3 days. And the first thing that I did was watch your film, Beautiful
Oh,
Lie. And I was mesmerized. I know that you alluded that it wasn't like your best self, but and I've heard that in other conversations that I've listened to of yours. But I was mesmerized. I loved it, and I loved the rawness, and I could see the struggle, and all of that. But anyway, so something that I was really taken with in that film, and then I've heard you mention in other conversations, is that you had this admission that given your background, your childhood, your family background, combined with your college experience, combined with your gender confusion, and just exploring that, it really fueled your um, ambition. Were you an ambitious? Did you feel ambitious as a young person? Tell us the story of your early years and how you were propelled into this meteor-like career in the tech industry.
It was an accidental journey. It really was. I mean, my father, who passed in 2016, was so sweet. He had barely got out of high school. He loved animals. Couldn't really not have a real serious conversation sometimes with him because he was just whimsical. But he had just the kindest heart. And my mother was 19 when she had me. She had borderline personality disorder. She was not a well woman. Um, and I was either the devil or the angel. And they got married when she was crap 18, I guess. They'd been together since she was 15. And so he was the only man she'd ever been with. And she molded me, good or bad. At some
Both,
point,
probably. Yeah.
you stop hating your mother. I did, at least. Um, and I realized, well, hell, I turned out okay. I'm not, I don't, I don't dislike myself. Kind of like myself sometimes. She must have done a good job. But she pushed me like mad to do better. And I was really confused about stuff, and I felt like an outsider. I felt like the other. I just worked hard, and my dad worked hard, and so I got through high school, and I worked at gas stations in between. Had girlfriends, had lots of girlfriends. Didn't know what it was. Didn't know how to express it because I graduated high school in 1978. I knew what gay and straight was. I didn't know all of all the
The
granular
spectrum.
the granularity of everything else. And so it's went up to high school. I remember having a crush on a guy, and we nothing physical ever happened. I don't believe, but I remember we spent a lot of time together, go out for weekends and travel, and in retrospect, I never thought anything of it. It just seemed fine. And now I look back and I think, wow, that was something was going on. I just didn't know what the time was. Married at age 21, um, and dropped out of college because my grades were poor and my study habits were awful. And I would say I'm very clever. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I'll outwork everybody else. And that was my only skill set. I could outwork everybody else and work them into the ground because I would just do that. That was my only thing I had in my favor, and I used that. So I went to Silicon Valley, got, dropped out of college, ended up as a tech writer for a computer company. Um, Computers back in 1981 were big little boxes before the IBM PC. And my boss was a guy named Ron Conway who um, is worth $1.5 billion now. He put early money in Google and Facebook. He resigned from Salesforce's philanthropy arm when Mark Benioff invited ICE in to San Francisco. And I ran into Ron Conway about 5 years ago. I'm sorry, I'm digressing. About 5 years ago, I was at a meeting, maybe 3 years ago, in at the Claremont in Berkeley, and I was in a beautiful blue dress, and Ron had not seen me since he knew Anthony. And I thought, I did not want to. Number one, I didn't know Ron's politics. Number two, I don't want to upset him. Not my goal is not to screw up people's nights. My goal is to have my pleasant night and be left alone. And I did not say hello to him. I should have said hi because when I saw in the news that he'd reacted so angrily at Benioff's flip to Trumpism, to MAGA, I was stunned.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I ended up working for him. I became a VP of sales at age 24. Um, I kept just navigating with really not a plan, by the way. I'm like a Neanderthal, if you will. I'm a cerebral
Oh, that's cute.
Neanderthal.
We like that.
I like that.
Neanderthal. Yeah.
I ended up age 30, geez, 34, being a VP of sales at a company went public.
Wow.
And at age 43, I was named age 40 president of the company, age 43 president and CEO. Sold the company for $500 million at age 45, and thought it was a big deal. I won the EY award after that, by the way, and I thought I was massive. I was a stupid kid, didn't know anything, and still very confused. And then I went on, and the deals got bigger, the checks got bigger, the companies got bigger.
Right.
Eventually, I was at this company called Imperva, which is a great company, wonderful people, cybersecurity company based in Tel Aviv. Spent a lot of time in Israel, and I was unwinding, if you will, and unwinding to the point where I didn't even know what I was doing. I was my father was ill. My father passed away in 2016. I I left my wife in October 2016, moved to New York to transition, and was pretty hopped up on substances and stuff. I was trying to kind of get away from myself.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
Self-medicate. Yeah.
Yeah, I was good at it too, really good at it. Had everything on speed dial in New York City. And I say outed by an activist investor. An activist investor had put 140 million in the company, very well-known tech investor, and ran into a board member of mine. And I was sloppy with my social media. And he saw geez, I guess that at the time, one of the directors of the company, 'cause I was the CEO and chair, and said, "Your CEO is distracted. I think they're trans. They're doing something." And it was created just a storm of a storm. And I was so pissed. But I'll go back to, but I wasn't my best self because I wasn't remembering the whole ambassador idea. Because if I can't understand it, how the hell can they get to understand it? And
Oh,
but I was angered by it. And and
and
I,
defensive. You
it,
could
it,
you could feel a little of that in the film, like because you were working it out, trying to wrap your brain around it. Yeah.
and in reality, look, this investor put 140 million of his company's money,
Mm,
his reputation. He didn't give a shit that I was trans. He cared that I was distracted.
yeah.
And he was right.
Yeah.
Attacking me because of my gender expression, but he was attacking me because he thought I wasn't doing my job, and I think he was pretty right. So we met. I remember we met afterward, and he called 6 months later, and I was really not pleasant.
Yeah.
He apologized,
So
and I
yeah.
and I said, okay, I forgive you. And I called him a few months later, met again. I said, and I apologized. You didn't get the best version of me. I'm sorry. Um, we've kept in touch. When he was an activist when against Mark Benioff at Salesforce. He asked me if I'd consider being a board representative for his firm at one point.
Oh, I love it.
So but that like I got a really illustrious career. If I were in Hollywood, I'd be a B minus actor. I was in a couple of TV commercials and I got residuals. That's it.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Well, hey, rock star, documentary filmmaker, and
Oh,
we're going to get to maybe the potential future of that. But 2016, this is a great seg, and it's sort of your unraveling. And something that really struck me was that your dad died right when you went to New York, and you were really sort of behaving erratically, going to New York, separating from your wife and your family, and was there a relationship with losing your father and sort of ex a newfound exploration? And the reason I ask you is it really struck me in the film, and I had this visceral reaction to it because when I lost my mother, with whom I was very close to, I an unexpected part of the grief process for me very quickly after she passed was this realization that I was free to be who I wanted to be. Like I didn't have her expectations psychically on me. And and I wondered about your relationship with your father and if you felt anything like that with his passing
It
and
was
how that might have fueled your.
That's a really good question. My father was so dear. In his last 30 days of life, I remember like 4 days before he passed, I had a picture of myself dressed with a wig on my phone. I showed it to him.
Oh,
I said, "Dad, this is me." And he looked at it. He was very frail at the time. He's so sweet, guy. And he said, "You're kind of pretty." So my father gave me permission.
mm,
His passing gave me this feeling, okay, I'm the next in line. Life is short. Um, what am I going to do? But my father made it okay. His It was one of those things where I wasn't worried. He could have said a thousand things.
yeah.
He could have made it terrible. He didn't. Um, so he gave me permission in my mind because he was sweet about it, and I'll never forget that. So he said,
Yeah. Well, in listening to your music again and in doing my research for our conversation, I really the song that I really loved the most was Promise. I mean, yeah, I love folks. You can Google all of the music. You can get it at Amazon and Spotify and where else? Another place.
on YouTube,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's all over. Um, and the whole album is there. Have a listen. But they're fantastic. The Freak Show and Take Out the Trash and all of these overt political in your face anthem type songs that of course I loved. But the thing that was unexpected was Promise.
I
And
was,
it brought me to tears.
thank you. I've heard that from male guy friends as well. Just it's that being left behind thing, right? I think, and it's
Yeah. Well, and if
uh,
I share who I am,
yeah.
if I really am truthful about who I am I going to lose you?
And it was influenced by a song by Pink Floyd called "The Final Cut."
Mm.
Um, and the whole idea about Promise, I was in the middle of this album, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll just do a rock opera. My brain, you
Yes.
put a little bit of ketamine at 2:30 in the morning to write music, and my brain goes in really crazy directions. And in a matter of a week, I wrote "Taking Out the Trash," "Promise," um, and something else. And those three songs were going to be on a different album.
Mm.
And they happened so fast, I just stuck them on this one. And it was the last day in the studio, and I called Sari, my fellow vocalist in the band, and she co-wrote a lot of stuff together. She's amazing. And we met in the studio in LA, and she got on the piano. I sang it a cappella.
Yeah.
She put the chords to it, and we had it down in about 8 hours.
Wow.
And then we brought in the strings and everything else. So
Oh,
I, I wrote it for my wife. Um, and when she first heard it, because I had this thought of a rock opera, and it would be this dystopian future of revolution. I had gun sounds in the background, and she gave me this look like, "Why'd you do that?" And I was so frustrated. I thought, "Listen to the damn words."
yeah.
I got it. But everything else was pretty distracting. But yeah, but I wrote about her, I wrote a lot of songs about her. I think it's my way of I think I can best express my apologies in life to her through music at this point in my life.
Hmm. I makes me think of this quote from Licorice Pizza Records, your record company. Her lyrics and their melodies speak honestly about the cruelty of politics and the shame of failure, and even the grace of redemption. So beautiful. The finding of her voice and the courage to share her truth gave way to the grace of her own redemption. So lovely. And I loved your voice on that too. I could really, I could really, hear you more clearly. And it was vulnerable and just beautiful.
Thank you. You know, it's
Uh,
what the whole transition stuff as it comes out, what makes it successful or not is how you're treated. Right. So it's you can go into this, everyone goes into this thinking they're going to be a certain thing. They're going to change all these things about themselves. You can't really change. You are who you are. And I went into this thinking I'm going to get rid of some abrasiveness, which have done fairly well. That I used to exhibit when I was a CEO and stuff. I was a bit of an asshole. But you are who you are. And so that's, you're not going to really change a whole lot about yourself. If you go in messy, you come out messy. If you go in happy, you may come out a little happier. Um, but it's not going to change a whole lot. And so it's what makes it work or not is how you're treated by your family, by your friends, by society. And I live in a bubble. I do. Work was really a wonderful experience, and and very lucrative and fortunate over time, over and over and over again. And so I don't have to deal with a lot of crap that other people deal with. And I realize that. But I also, my family, the way that my family's reaction to me, my wife's reaction to me. Um, and we've been married now 33 years this year, 33 years. And,
wow, I love it.
yeah, and look, it's different. It's not what it was. We have a good partnership. We love our family. We've got a grandson. We love little Elliot. Um, we spend a lot of time with our kids. We travel together with friends. We're gonna
Mm.
go see friends tonight for dinner around the corner. We've kept most of our friends, and it's okay. I tamp myself down a little bit um, in deference to her. Not that she asks for it at all. She says, "Wear what I want." I do, but I also want her to be comfortable. And sometimes my being comfortable is to make sure that she's even more comfortable than I am, if that makes any sense.
It totally does. I
And then
totally get it.
my daughter's big question was that they all asked the same question. Well, what do we call you? I said, your fucking father. It doesn't matter how I'm dressed. It doesn't matter where we are. I'm dad. And so if you want to call me MB or Michelle, you can, but please call me dad. So
Oh, yeah, I love it. I just love it. Well, and you just nail so many, questions that people have. You just nailed in that what you just shared. And it's of course it's that you are who you are, and just you can lift something up and maybe bring something to the background as you need to. But I was telling a girlfriend of mine about you, and I was looking forward to having you on the show, and that I had loved your concert. And she asked me if I'd ever seen the documentary Will and Harper.
oh,
Yeah. And I had not heard of it at all. And for our listeners, it's Will Ferrell and his long-term friendship with, he was then Andrew Steele, was a writer on SNL, and they were both on SNL together, and they formed this amazing friendship. And then Andrew transitioned to become Harper, and Will wanted to understand it. And he asked in the film a question that I thought was so obvious and so simple and so direct. And he said, "This is what I want to ask Harper. What does being trans mean to you?" And I thought, I think everyone that wants to be an ally wants to know that the answer to that question. What does it mean to you,
I just get to be
Michelle?
myself. I get to be who I am. It doesn't mean anything other than that. I get to be who I am. And it happens
Yes.
to be in the trans label. It could have been called turtle. I don't know.
I like that.
I get to be who I am
And to be who I am.
whenever, whoever I want to be at that point. As long as it's not malicious, as long as it's not doing damage, as long as it's not causing problems, I get to be who I am. And
I love it. Yeah.
And you know what? It's the most gratifying thing in the world is that, you know, I'm always intrigued by watching. I don't watch a lot of news these days because it makes me militant and crazy. But the bathroom
I wish
discussion.
I could follow in your footsteps.
Oh my God, it's
Just
awful.
mind numbing. Anyway.
Trans, trans people in bathrooms. Um,
Ugh.
I have had the most wonderful conversations, and I don't linger. I go in and I come out. I check face. I leave. I don't
Yeah.
want to cause a problem. I have had the women have said the nicest damn things to me at the well at
Of
the Bel Air
course.
Hotel. You know, but
Yeah.
where I go, right? The Peninsula and the Ritz Carlton New York. But I've had the nicest comments from women in bathrooms about how nice I looked.
Mm.
And my God, you want to make someone's day, refer to them as she if they want to be called she. That you'll affect 50 other lives that way. Just 50 other lives because that person will just they'll be beaming, they'll be happy, they'll be so secure that day in what is typically a pretty insecure
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. And all of our lives are insecure.
Huh.
But people who are that are vilified, can you I mean, this is what I say to people who, who know that I have trans friends and who are
Yeah.
on the periphery of my friendships who are not familiar with trans and what's that like? And what do you think it's like? It's to your point, it's who they are. It's
Yeah.
just who they are. And you don't need to know anything more about that. You don't need to care about what gender is, BTW, all a construct. You don't need to know what's going on here. What you need to do is have some love of humanity. That's it.
Yeah. So when you're asking me like how
Anyway.
to identify as a human, because it's when I go out, like some days I'm in a hurry. When we're on stage at the show, I didn't have a lot of makeup on. I was trying to try to get the lyrics right in my head. Um, but some days I'll go with the baseball cap and big dark sunglasses on and go about my business. Some days I'll go out and want to be a bit more sparkly.
All jazzed, yeah.
But it's just, and some days I won't go out. Some days I'll stay at home. I won't want to go out at all. Just don't I want anyone to see me. It just is what it is. But when you're out and people are kind, it's all it takes. That kindness, and I've had 12 instances in my life, maybe 12 times in my life when someone was unkind. 12. I'm 65 years old. It's
You're
not
right.
bad.
That's
That's
not
not
bad. I can say
bad.
that.
And it's every time I get pissed off about the planet, I have to rein myself in and remind myself, people are kind. Human beings, it's hard to hate someone up close when you're alone. It's hard to hate someone up close.
That's a
When you're in
great
a
phrase.
gang or a group, oh sure, you could get caught up in the mania, but it's human beings, I think, are inherently kind. They are also inherently afraid of what they don't understand. And it's easy to create wedge issues and foment discord. And the trans community, sadly, it's the worst cohort. And when I say I don't mean to demean any trans people. I'm just saying that unemployment, suicide attempts, it's the worst freaking cohort on the planet. It
Yeah.
is. Um, and why are you picking on them? It's 1.5% of
One,
the population, and we do nothing. When JD Vance and uh, Mushroom came out and said that that
yeah.
that trans people were domestic terrorists, I thought, wow,
Yeah. No, it's just,
I've been elevated now. How cool is that? I don't even have
I know.
a gun that
I've
doesn't
got
work.
some power, man. Oh
Exactly.
my God. Well, and I just, the Heritage Foundation president, Kevin Roberts, announcing, saying the quiet part out loud, that he wants to outlaw trans care,
Oh yeah.
for both children and adults. Like, of course. Yeah. I just,
And as a male to female trans person, um, you go through life as a male, and you're really never thinking about abortion rights. You're thinking about, oh, well, yeah, people should have the rights to do with their own body. But boy, you get to this side of the table, and then you're going, holy crap, I get it now.
yeah, of course you do.
Why are people trying to control how people treat their bodies?
My body. Well,
Right.
yeah. Well, this is a great seg. Gilded Age. I loved that song as well, and I'm using your songs to organize my
Love this
my
take.
my thoughts. And for our listeners, a Gilded Age obviously is about the 1%. And do you consider yourself part of the 1%?
I technically would be in that demographic if you ran the numbers. Um,
Hmm.
I don't consider myself in that.
Of
I
course, yeah.
I I I got off all my Silicon Valley boards
Mm.
because Silicon Valley to me is like I spent a lifetime in it, and maybe I was drinking a Kool-Aid, but it's become so greedy, and so there's no morality.
Yeah,
Used to be used to be let's work really hard and go fix this vaccine problem. If we do it right, we'll get paid.
yeah,
Now it's let's go get paid. And maybe we'll fix a problem, or maybe we'll create a problem, or maybe we'll just take invade some white space and fuck the cab drivers.
right. Yeah,
Um,
it's
and stuff
remarkable.
like that has become about greed and avarice, and it is the new Gilded Age. It really is. Zuckerberg and Bezos, all these folks, they're the same ilk. They
Yeah,
have no compass. The only
no,
moral compass the only compass they have is on their boat, right? That's it. It's on their yacht. That's
they're both. Well, you touched on just now, getting to the other side and this is something that my trans women friends, I'm always fascinated by. So what's it like to have walked in the world with the white male patriarchy behind me, behind you, and then to transition to being a marginalized person?
it's
um, both
fascinating
trans and female, like to have both of those in you is wild. It's like, I
because
mean,
it's seared as to what privilege is. Really,
yeah,
I've showed up at breakfast with board members, um, in their lovely white Tom Ford dress, and I've noticed that it takes the male board member 25 seconds before they'll look me in the eye. They'll not want to look. They'll they'll just I've seen it re- over and it's not someone being a butthead. It's just they're just having a
it's
tough
so
time
socialized. Yeah.
with technology. And then it usually leads to a conversation. They open up and then suddenly they've got a gay relative. It usually becomes a confessional. Um, I was never look as a male. I was never talked over in meetings ever. I was a chair and CEO of companies. I was maybe by investors sometimes when they were probably angry at me for missing a quarter or something, and that was their right. But as this, I've been talked over in meetings. Not a ton, but enough that I go, wow, that's never happened. I remember
Noticeably. Yeah.
uh, where I was a executive chair of a cybersecurity company. I recently left that board in December. And early on in that tenure, I stepped into an operating role for them because they did not have a VP of sales, and I could do that job in my sleep. And ran it for about 90 days and exited a couple of the reps that weren't up to spec. And I got feedback that one of the reps, and this was again, people could say whatever they want, and people can be violent, and people can be mean and demeaning. But this person, their comment was, "I will not take directions from that woman." And I thought, bless you. Because you could have told me any damn thing you wanted.
Right.
Bless you. No, but I thought, wow, that's something from that woman. From that woman. Yeah. And I'd opened the NASDAQ twice as CEO, twice as a board member. NYSE once as CEO. They should have fucking taken my direction. I did make drop. I'm dropping F bombs.
Oh,
I apologize.
please. Yeah, no. We are not swear free. We are not fuck free here.
Thank you.
Spoken like a minister. Um, um, yeah. So how did you feel when you were really kind of in the swirl of things? Well, another thing I was fascinated by in the film was that you talked about yourself in third person. I found that fascinating. I was like, wow, Anthony is this, Michelle is that. I mean, clearly you've been brought together with your transition, but and this is a question for Vampire Time, which is my third favorite song. Um, was the miss being unable to balance both, Michelle, Michelle by night, my mind was going off on the vampire thing. I love the whole vampire mystique, the myth of vampire, talk about somebody who's in two different worlds and, and loves the shadowy nightlife and just fantastic. Um, with both of the imbalance of Anthony by day and Michelle by night, the starting to be imbalanced, is that where the moment came that you knew you needed to transition?
Yeah, it was
When
so
was the moment?
it was I was so bifurcated. It was I mean I would go out
Yeah,
I'd be I'd be dressed up. I'd go to the bar, I'd relax. Sometimes a gentleman would come up and want to take me to dinner. I would go, and it would be an evening. I thought, wow, that was so fun. It was so fun to be treated like that. And then I'd go back to my room. I'd take the makeup off, put the hair away, and ah, shit, I got to go back as that in the morning. Yeah, it really got upsetting. Couldn't figure it out. And there were two people in me. I mean, and the only way to get rid of one was to kill the other at one point. It was a thought process, right? Because you think through this stuff, what you're going to do. Um, and I never thought I would transition. It was never a plan. I did not. I did not have a clock in me that said, okay, when I'm 57, I'm going to go transition.
right.
Never dreamt I would. I just done went out. And I was trying to figure myself out. And I got this psychiatrist on Fifth Avenue, Dr. Eric, who's wonderful. And he's now become my life coach, by the way. It's funny. It was all about gender at first. And the first 90 days, I think I went in twice as Michelle. The rest I kind of went in as an Anthony looking character. And after 90 days, he said, look, I can't help you. I said, what do you mean? I said, you're lying to me. I said, no, I'm not lying. So you're not being truthful. He said, if you're not going to be open and be truthful, I can't help you. I remember I said, well, I just didn't want you to think I was screwed up. He said, remember why you're here. Um, and after that, I began to be honest and I began to listen and I started taking hormones and I started to figure out myself. But boy, you're doing this early on and you're walking down the street and you're hearing laughter and you think it's about you. And I remember having that conversation with him and he said, look, I don't want to upset you. You're not that important. And it was one of those things where over time I began to figure out how it was going to work. But it was a struggle. It was a struggle. And look, and some days it still is a struggle. I mean, the Vampire Time was written because I stay up late at night. I want to do selfies sometimes. My friends are on the East Coast or in Europe. I will I'm up all night texting people or on the phone, and not nefarious stuff, just the people I know.
Yeah.
And Karen would, I remember coming down one morning for breakfast, and I've been up all night, and she said, "Oh," I said, "Yeah, honey, I'm on Vampire Time," and I wrote the song Vampire Time about selfies. It's not a, which is it's the least it's a title track and it's the least serious song on the album, which is kind of a sad thing for me, but it is it is
Yeah, but I just sort of love the beat, the vibe is so good.
I was as a Tom Petty vibe. There's a
Yeah.
might find these stories. I'm don't mean to bore. There's a dive bar about 10 minutes from here, and I would go sometimes. And when I would show up looking like a tawdry soul. I would be not good. Some nights I would be incredibly pretty. And I remember one night I was there, and I've always said to myself, I could look good. Like a classic car. 10 feet away at night in good lighting, amazing. Like a 100-point restoration. 7 feet away, I see a little bit of orange peel in the paint. 3 feet away, I see a chip in I see a little bit of chrome pitting. 2 feet away, the bumper's dented. And that's me at night. And I remember I was sitting with a friend of mine who was really hammered, and a friend of his came up who was even more hammered. And I'm not drunk because I want to get him to sing a Tom Petty song. And this guy, my friend's friend, looks at me and looks at his friend and says, "Man, you're fucking lucky," because he thought I was his girlfriend. And then his hand slips onto my knee twice. And I told my wife this story. She said, "What would you do?" I said, "I did nothing because I was about to get up and sing a Tom Petty song. And when I did, he wanted to yak." Because all of a sudden, that hot chick sounds like Tom Petty, right? Sorry.
Oh no, it's good. It's good. We like stories. We we must have stories. We must have laughter in these crazy times. Oh my Lord. Well, I'm looking at the looking at the time and I have a million more questions for you, but we're gonna have to wrap this up.
Thank you for this. I'm honored to
Oh
be.
my, thank you. This has just been so wonderful.
It feels like we're having a conversation. It's like a Zoom call. It's good. It's
Yeah,
wonderful. Thank you.
excellent. Complete pleasure and honor. So, what's next before we jump off? I have to ask you about the documentary. I mean, I know that you share this with in special instances with people, who come to you and need your guidance. What's the future for the documentary in terms of maybe another aside, it being turned into another project?
I'm going to keep it where it is. I was the documentary at one point was almost turned into a series on Amazon. And you talk about the identity and pressure of being someone who you want to be, who you're not.
Yeah.
Zachary Quinto was going to play Anthony Bettencourt. Um,
Well,
and then Candace Kane, who's a lovely actor. She's amazing. She was a super talented. She was the first trans actor on network television in Dirty Sexy Money. She was going to be Michelle. And so and Jerry Zucker and Janet Zucker. Jerry and I had a company. Jerry wrote Airplane, directed Ghost.
yes.
He and I had a company called the National Banana. It was a short form comedy um, company in 2006, circa. We raised money for. I was the CEO. He was the chief creative officer. We were co-founders, and that folded. But he and his wife and I stayed good friends. And as I transitioned and he saw the documentary, Janet, his wife, said, "Let's do a series." So we had all lined up, and it was Amazon optioned my life story rights, sent me a check. We had scripts going back and forth, and then Amazon and MGM merged, and project died. And at the time, I was bothered, but I wasn't because I had gotten myself into this tunnel of I've got to look like Candace Kane now. Candace Kane is a really beautiful woman, and she's gorgeous, and she's so special, such a good friend. And I'm not Candace Kane. I'm not. I don't sound like her. I don't look like her. And this is just not going to. I didn't know what to do. It was really feeling uncomfortable. Then the other part of that was the opening salvo. The pilot shows me as dream sequence. Anthony and Michelle having a conversation. I'm doing these crazy lines of cocaine off this glass table at the Four Seasons in a pied a terre. Not that it didn't happen, but I didn't want that to be how I was thought of by my board members. And so I went to all my CEOs and I said, look, if this thing ends up on television, you probably won't call me after your board. And so I'm happy to write music. I'm happy to um, be an ally, um, be a dad, be a
And your
husband.
foundational work, yeah.
I'm just happy to be who I am. And I'm not anything special other than really lucky with a lot of opportunity. And I, despite my best efforts of screwing my life, I really haven't been able to yet. So that's who I am.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to hear you want to keep writing music, and you're going to be coming back to New York, I'm sure, with
Well,
Vampire Time. Yeah. Well, any last words of wisdom that you want to bestow upon our listeners before we sign off?
I really enjoyed this, and I just say, be kind, be a kind human. I tell all my friends, my daughters, as beautiful as they are, what really makes them special is they are so kind. They change the world by being kind humans. And if everyone just be kind, life be a whole lot better.
Amen. May it be so.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for being on the edge of every day. And to our listeners, remember, you are always at the edge of the miraculous. Until we speak again, take good care. Come on. Hey everyone, thanks again for spending time with us here on the Edge of Everyday. I'm so grateful for your support. Please hit subscribe and follow us. You can find me, Sandra Bargman, across social media. Links are always in the show notes. And please leave us a review at Apple Podcasts. Much gratitude to my inspiring guests. Thank you for sharing your challenges, your reflections, your wit and wisdom. And lastly, many thanks to Magic Thread Media and the executive coaching team at Create Magic at Work. Remember, the edge is where you come alive. The edge of everyday.
Pressure pushing down on me, pressing down on you. No man has fall under pressure. Come on.
Hey everyone, thanks again for spending time with us here on the Edge of Everyday. I'm so grateful for your support. Please hit subscribe and follow us. You can find me, Sandra Bargman, across social media. Links are always in the show notes. And please leave us a review at Apple Podcasts. Much gratitude to my inspiring guests. Thank you for sharing your challenges, your reflections, your wit and wisdom. And lastly, many thanks to Magic Thread Media and the executive coaching team at Create Magic at Work. Remember, the edge is where you come alive. The edge of everyday.
Pressure pushing down on me, pressing down on you. No man has fall under pressure.
Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to a Magic Thread Media podcast.